So could everybody find a seat so we can get started with our AGM?
Yeah. And write the report? Yeah.
Okay, if we can all be seated so that we can get started, not too late. Well, good evening everybody and welcome to our 2024 FoLA AGM. The meeting tonight, as well as the presentation, is being live streamed, so we welcome anybody who's watching proceedings live stream. But I also must say an apology to those people who endeavoured to watch the last meeting live stream, and we had technical difficulties here which is beyond our means on the night, and so the meeting was not able to be live streamed, but it was recorded and subsequently put on YouTube, and so it's still able to be watched. As a result of our passing of our FoLA Constitution last year, our AGM date has been changed, and our financial year now closes at the 31st of December in line with the membership year, and our AGM needs to be held within 5 months of that, and most likely to be held in March each year. I can also advise that we do have a quorum in which to be able to conduct this AGM. Now, our agenda will be a little bit different from what perhaps some people have seen, and in the past we've had a devotion at the beginning of the AGM presentation, and that's not happening as such tonight, but the devotion will be in the form of hymn singing with Indonesian guests, and that'll be held during or towards the end of their presentation, and that'll be taking the place of a devotion. So hopefully you all signed in when you came in here, and if you had any apologies that you knew of, could you please register them in the book or let Shirley know so that we can record all that information. Now, the minutes of our last AGM were circulated to members. Are there any alterations or corrections to those minutes? If not, would somebody who was present at that meeting be prepared to move the adoption of those minutes? Thanks, Margaret Modra. And seconded Lois. All in favour that I honour a true record, please show. Against? It's carried. Now we have some reports here. The least interesting one first. This is my report for our AGM here tonight, and it's been my privilege to be chairperson of FoLA again for this past year, and this is my report for the activities for the past year, or at least since our last AGM. The FoLA committee met shortly after the 2022 AGM to elect its officers for the coming year. All executive positions remained unchanged. This report covers a period from our 2022 AGM in October to December the 31st, 2023, in line with our current constitution. Our committee met 8 times, the first one at LLL and the remaining meetings at Lutheran Archives. The revised FoLA constitution was adopted at a specially convened FoLA general meeting on August the 27th, 2023. Our constitution subcommittee, comprising of Shirley Golding, Andrew Waldheater and myself, worked very diligently on this project for over 2 years to produce a comprehensive document that was eventually accepted. We also sincerely appreciate much external assistance and approvals from the LCA Standing Committee on Constitutions, the LCA General Church Board, the LCA College of Bishops, and finally our FoLA members. Our constitution also had to comply with a large number of requirements of the Associations Incorporation Act of 1985 as amended, administered by the South Australian Department of Consumer and Business Services. Our financial year will now end on the 31st of December each year, in line with the membership financial year. Our AGM needs to be held within 5 months of the end of the financial year and may in future be held in March. Our organisation is now covered for public liability insurance for the first time through Lutheran Insurance. You can't hear? Not working? There's no sound? Oh, sorry about that. Through Lutheran Insurance at a much cheaper rate than commercially available. We now also have protection in compliance. Have we got more batteries? Maybe the batteries are flat, are they? It's all right. Well, we're going to have trouble here tonight, are we? We now also have protection in compliance in regard to the safety of children and the vulnerable. The live streaming of all our meetings occurred in 2023, with grateful thanks to the team of volunteers who made this all happen. We continue to welcome feedback from anyone who view the proceedings on live stream or subsequently on YouTube. Attendance at our meetings generally continue to be lower than pre-pandemic levels. Every effort is being made on many levels to improve attendances. The following is a brief summary of the topics and speakers of our general meetings in 2023. And tonight I'll just highlight the speakers and their topics, and the details that I've written about each one you can read in the written report that we send out later on. February, Dear Sisters in the Faith, Post-War Relief in Germany by Dasni Pietsch. March, The Moravian Settlement at Bethel, South Australia by Lyle Kupke. April, Iron Bushman Cansalis. A bushman can do anything, by Dr. David Moore in relation to H.A. Heinrich. May, In the Barossa and Beyond, George French Angus, by Dr. Philip Jones. June, Missionary Christian Gottlob Teichelman, A Life of Compassion and Patient Endurance, by Dr. Christine Lockwood. July, The Defiant Anti-Conscriptionist, The Curious Life of Ephraim Henry Coombe, presented by Helen Hennessy and Patricia Booth. August, United in Song, the story behind the Lutheran hymnal of 1973 by ALC student Jacob Fabish. September, Architectural Innovators, Eric von Schrammick and Norman Dragomiller, by Chris Burns. October, The Overland Telegraph, A Communication Revolution, by Richard Venus. A detailed report of each of the monthly meeting topics is included in the FoLA Newsletter during the year. We sincerely thank our Secretary, Chris Lockwood, for her attention to detail in recording our committee and general meeting minutes. Our Treasurer, Shirley Golding, has done an amazing job again in keeping our books up to date, and she also manages some funds for FoLA Queensland and FoLA Victoria, in addition to the German Heritage Research Group seminars to spend on printing proceedings of previous year's seminars. We are again very grateful to our program coordinator, Margaret Modra, for her effort in liaising with guest speakers, booking the meeting venue, contacting FoLA personnel to introduce and thank speakers, and personnel to report on the meeting topics for inclusion in our FoLA newsletter. Margaret continues to promote our meetings in parish bulletins in the cities, suburban and regional areas. We are endeavouring to spread the scope of passing information about our meetings to a wider audience within the Lutheran Church and beyond. The quarterly FoLA News continues to be a most valuable newsletter to pass on information to our members, and we particularly thank our editor, John Temmie, Lois Sweck and many others behind the scenes who prepare each edition. We're also very grateful to Andrew Walthe to assist in producing the newsletter, and to John Schultz for his expertise and efforts in many spheres, including emailing the newsletters and other notices, etc. to members. We encourage members to give their email addresses to John so that as many newsletters as possible can be emailed to members rather than the expense of posting them all in the mail. And of course, the rate of postage is going up shortly. The annual FoLA Journal is again being edited by Dr. Dean Sweck. We sincerely appreciate his effort as editor, and he wishes to retire from this task, and we would welcome someone to come forward to take over this important role. During this last year, FoLA, with the grateful assistance of Lutheran Archive staff, prepared a meeting presenters consent form to be signed by all presenters before their meeting presentations. It is clearly evident that the Archives team is very busy and that Lutheran Archives is a most valuable resource to the Lutheran Church and the general community. During this past year, FoLA has offered to donate $10,000 to Lutheran Archives to contribute to their air conditioning project. It has paid a previous commitment to Lutheran Archives of $10,000 towards the cost of establishing the Lutheran Archives website. Pastor Malcolm Peck is coordinating a project to document history of Lutheran youth ministry in Australia over the years, and this project is ongoing. The occasional publication entitled Aboriginal Land Rights and Self-Determination at Hermannsburg, 1972 to 1982, was published by FoLA in 2022, and sales of that book have been amazing. It is planned to have a reprint of that book in 2024. John Schubert from Victoria is compiling a very comprehensive manuscript on the extended Carville family, and it is intended to be published by FoLA in 2024. FoLA was successful in gaining a South Australian History Fund grant of $2,000 to contribute towards the cost of publishing this book. The German Heritage Research Group History Month seminar was again held at Lungwhile Lutheran Church, Tanunda, on the 27th of May 2023. The seminar topic was Connections, South Australia and Germany. FoLA has established an annual research fellowship with assistance up to $1,000 to successful applicants. The first grant of $200 has been given to Maya, M-A-Y-A, and that person only has one name, for her research in recording the history of St. Paul's Lutheran homes in Harndorf. We deeply regret the passing of Mrs. Ruth Fiebig on January the 8th, 2023. She was a valued FoLA committee member from 2004 to 2013. The membership status of our organisation at the end of the current financial year is 220 financial and life members. We have lost 35 members during this past year, which is a real concern to our committee. We thank all members who regularly assist FoLA in so many ways, both at the archives and our general meetings and other activities. We encourage all members to continue to take an active interest in FoLA and to invite others to become members. Finally, my sincere thanks to the FoLA Committee for their tireless efforts again during this past year. Greg Slattery has advised that he will resign from our committee at this AGM. He has been a very valued member of our committee since April 2019, and his active involvement with other history organisations has been of great benefit to us. I trust that this summary accurately reflects the activities of FoLA this year, and we look forward to your excellent support of FoLA events again in 2024. Respectfully submitted. So that's it. Is there any questions you have? No? Oh, amazing. Now, our Treasurer's Report is the next item, and you should all have a copy of that, and I'll ask Shirley to come forward and make comments about the Treasury situation.
Thanks, Jeff. Hopefully you've all received the Treasurer's Report that was circulated with the AGM agenda. But I'll read the Treasurer's Report itself, but I won't go through the items on the audited financial report. I'll just give a brief summary of that. Now, as Jeff has already mentioned, we've changed our financial year, so the report is for 16 months and not 12 months. But from now on, it will be for 12 months, from the beginning of January to the end of December. As mentioned in the reports for previous years, part of the total funds actually held by FoLA are for several other entities. So I don't outline any of the income and expenditure for that. We're only interested in what FoLA has in its LLL account. So at the end of the financial year, FoLA's balance was $26,434. The main source of FoLA's income was from membership fees, $6,910, sales of the new book, Aboriginal land rights and self-determination at Hermannsburg, and we received $4,076 for that. Donations, $2,490, and attendance fees, $2,245. Expenditure was mainly for the hire of the meeting venues, printing and postage of newsletters and the FoLA Journal, and printing of the new book. And as Jeff has already mentioned, we've set aside $10,000 as a pledge to the archives for the air conditioning. Now, we have some challenging times ahead. FoLA lost 35 members last year. In previous years, it's been basically a break even. People resigned and new members were received. But I don't think ever before have we lost 35 members in 1 year. And as of today, there are still 75 members who haven't renewed their membership fees. 75. Now, just a little bit of history. FoLA was established in October 1990. And as stated at the back of the FoLA Journal, which some of you would have received, but you've received them in the past, members provide supplementary financial assistance for the projects which facilitate the effective functioning of the archives. Through the years, FoLA has provided thousands of dollars to the archives for various projects. One of the latest, as I mentioned before, was for the archives repository. It would be very disappointing if FoLA was no longer able to support the archives. In its recent FoLA committee meeting, one of the committee members, who was a retired archivist but not for Lutheran archives, stated that in the historical scene in and around Adelaide, the Burnside Historical Society almost closed a couple of years ago. Marion Historical Society ceased last year, and just recently Glenelg Historical Society has ceased operating. The whole scenario involving community groups is changing, whether it be the congregations at church or memberships of groups such as Probus and Rotary. The budget provided by the LCA to the archives is being reduced. The staff of the archives do an amazing job in sourcing grants, but this is very likely to become more difficult in the years ahead. A FoLA committee member who made that previous statement also stated that the Lutheran Archives has always been the national archives of the LCA and now LCA and NZ. This is probably a unique situation amongst the religious archives in Australia, and we need to capitalise on the national aspect of the archives. FoLA needs to retain its current membership and to source more members from anywhere. It doesn't matter where. It doesn't have to be Lutherans. Lutheran Archives is our national treasure. Membership fees have not been increased for some years, but at the recent committee meeting, it was decided not to increase the fees for 2024. Instead, FoLA encourages those members who are in a position to do so to add a donation to their membership renewals. Or it doesn't have to be with the renewals, it can be at any time. And I would like to say thanks to Roger Collins, who again kindly audited the financial accounts. Roger has advised that he is prepared to audit next year's accounts also. Also, thanks to John Schultz for continuing to provide answers to my queries on membership. Thanks to the archive staff for their assistance, and thanks to the FoLA committee members for their support. That's my report. I'd like to move, I suppose, that the report be accepted unless there's any questions.
Is there a seconder to that motion? Thank you, Helen Schubert. Shirley did. Okay, any further discussion? All in favour that we accept this report with thanks to Shirley? Against? It's carried. And sincere thank you to you, Shirley, for your audited report, but also for your comments afterwards, and so for us here and those listening on live stream to sort of take to heart the issues that we have as an organisation and the challenges that we have. So thank you, Shirley, for all those insights. Move now on to Lutheran Archives report, and I'll ask its director, Rachel, to come forward and give her report.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Shirley. So I'm Rachel Cookle, Director of the Archives. So as both Jeff and Shirley have mentioned, this will be a report for 2023 and a little bit of 2022. So I had been on maternity leave and I returned to work in April 2023 from a year of leave. And I have to say that I came back to a well-oiled machine at Lutheran Archives. I want to acknowledge the work of archivists Angela Schilling, Bethany Pietsch and Ben Hollister, who did an exceptional job of managing the archives in my absence. It cannot have been an easy task to come into an organisation where there has been a 100% turnover of staff, with only a couple of months to learn the ropes before I commenced my leave. The amount of work they managed to get through, the new initiatives and streamlining and documenting of processes, and the care and expert advice they give to records creators, records depositors and researchers is a testament to their professionalism and expertise. We are all extremely grateful to our volunteers, in particular to Lois Sweck and Lyle Kupke, who provided the consistency, troubleshooting and corporate knowledge that was needed. Upon my return, I jumped straight into advocacy for Lutheran Archives. As many of you know, our financial situation is on shaky grounds, which is a reflection of the general financial situation of the world at large and reduced finances within the church. In practical terms, this translates to a threat to the number of staff that can be employed. And yet it is professional archivists who are needed to carry out the core business of Lutheran Archives. Without archivists, we could not provide a service to the public nor manage the records in our collection. Many of you are aware that the budget we receive from the church only covers a small percentage of our costs, and the rest is self-funded, predominantly through donations. I am grateful to all of you who pitched in towards the end of the 2023 financial year to help keep us afloat. The result of the advocacy is that I feel assured that there is a future for Lutheran Archives and that we will continue to have archivists employed. We are still determining in actual terms, however, what that future looks like, but there is hope. Through the year, we were able to commence the processing of the 35 linear metres of records deposited from New Zealand. We are grateful to New Zealand District for a financial contribution that allowed us to employ archivist Susan Kremberg for a number of months to work on this project. We are nearing the completion of the processing and are already fielding reference inquiries to access these records. A highlight was an event that we held in June to complete a ceremony that had commenced in Wellington with a Maori rite to farewell the records on their journey and then welcome the records to their destination in Adelaide. The Adelaide ceremony included a welcome to country by Kaurna elder Uncle Mickey and blessings and hymns led by the then LCNZ Bishop Mark Whitfield and LCANZ Bishop Paul Smith. At the end of 2022, Collections Archivist Angela flew to Alice Springs to attend the Fink River Mission offices and identify records that should be transferred to Lutheran Archives. 11 large boxes arrived in early 2023, which contain extremely significant personal records pertaining to residents of the former Mission Block accommodation units in Alice Springs. It is of utmost importance to provide access to these records, and we have received a steady stream of requests from former residents to access these records, many of whom may have little other personal documentation. In the second half of the year, we commenced in earnest the preparation of a new website, which provides content for researchers and provides resources for records creators and depositors. This was an enormous amount of work, which required the completion of a number of long-term projects. One of these projects was the listing of all congregation records held in our collection, all 700 congregations, which was undertaken by several volunteers. Another was ensuring all of the digitised photographs could be viewed online. And another was the publication of a reference book that documents all the congregations and parishes that have existed in the LCA-NZ and its preceding synods, including what synod they belonged to, which pastor served in the congregation, and when. This is technically a spoiler for next year's AGM, but the website went live about 4 weeks ago, and we are thrilled. And I am extremely grateful to you as the members of FoLA for the funds that were given for the production of this website. Throughout 2023, we continued to digitise our audiovisual collection, focusing on digitising the reel-to-reels and then preparing the VHS and audio cassettes for digitisation. This was funded by an SA History Trust Museums and Collections grant. I am happy to say that we are nearing the completion of digitisation, which is on track for the 2025 digitisation deadline. In October, we received news that we were successful in receiving a national grant for a project to digitise our congregation and parish registers, so that we can create preservation copies of the registers and can create copies that can be used by researchers, either by attending Lutheran archives on site or by having digital copies sent to them. The work for this project using these funds has commenced this year. However, we started the project at the end of last year with a 3-week internship of a university archival student. We have well over 1,000 registers in the collection, and it's unlikely that we will have all of these digitised within the grant funding budget. But the hope is that after the funds are expended, we will be able to tackle the remainder as a part of our normal operating processes. As part of the project, we will also be ensuring that all the records are indexed so that they can be searched and accessed. Bethany, who manages most of the research requests, has already reported that she is able to provide considerably speedier access to registers, including transcription and translation of records, on account of the registers that have been digitised to date. And this is a wonderful outcome. One of the highlights of 2023 was the introduction of a series of workshops with archivists and volunteers to appraise the backlog of book deposits. Many people come to the archives and offer us published works. This means copies of Bibles, hymn books, devotion books, and so forth, and books in German that have been held by their family. We are grateful for the deposits, yet they are time-consuming to wade through. Each item must be looked at to determine if it is relevant to the collection, and then to determine if we have copies already, and then to either accession it or dispose of the item or sell it if we don't need it. Over the years, approximately 110 linear metres of these types of deposits had accumulated, and the time had well and truly come to do something about this. Every fortnight for about 4 months, our team met for 4 hours to work together through these deposits. We have worked our way through about 80 metres worth and have 30 metres to go. This is an extraordinary effort and one that really should be highlighted and commended. We're about to start this process again next week to finalise working through this backlog. This comes to the end of reporting on the activities of the archives, and I would like to take a moment to thank all the staff and volunteers of Lutheran Archives for their incredible dedication and gift of time and expertise. I would like to thank the Friends of Lutheran Archives Committee. They work so hard to curate a varied and interesting array of topics and speakers for the year. And I'd like to thank each and every one of you, the members of Friends of Lutheran Archives. Your membership is so valued because it means that you value what is held in the collection of Lutheran Archives, and that you want those treasure troves of stories to be accessed by the public and preserved for generations to come. So I move, any questions? And I'd like to move that my report be accepted.
Thank you, Rachel. Would somebody like to second that motion? Thank you, Evleski. While you're here, thank you most sincerely for your report, but for what you and the other staff members are doing at the archives for our benefit and for the benefit of the church and the community at large. So thank you very much, and we wish you well for the future, but as Rachel has said, funding is a problem, and we hope that we can still maintain the staff that we have. Okay, so look, we'll move then on to the next phase of the meeting, which will be conducted by Rachel as well.
Okay, so now we're going to elect the new FoLA committee for 2024. And I will read the nominations that we have received. So we have, these are all current members standing for re-election. And so we have Shirley Golding, Dr. Christine Lockwood, Margaret Modra, Pastor Malcolm Peck, Jeff Sagenschnitter, Helen Schubert, John Temmie, Dr. Dean Zweck, and Dr. Lois Zweck. So I'd like to call for someone to move these nominees for the committee. Yep, Lyle. And a seconder, Danny. And all in favour? Any against? Excellent. Okay, and so we elect two positions, and this is the financial auditor, and Roger Collins, as Shirley has mentioned, is willing to stand again. So if someone would like to move Roger's nomination. We have Lorraine and a seconder, Barbara. And now for the position of journal editor is Dr. Dean Zweck, and Lois would like to nominate him, and a seconder. And we have Morris. Thank you, and that's the end of the elections. Oh. They were all carried. Thanks, Gilbert.
Thank you, Rachel. I know what you're talking about. So, in our previous and current constitution, we cannot accept nominations on the floor of the annual meeting. The nominations need to be made beforehand, either to myself or to Lutheran Archives, and be approved by the nominee. And we did not receive any other nominations, and so those that Rachel mentioned here will be the next committee. Is there any other business relative to an annual meeting? No? Then I declare the annual meeting closed, and we'll move on to our general meeting for tonight. And I think the main thing is to sort of explain to you what's happening next meeting, and then to introduce our speaker, and I'll call on Lois to do the honours for us.
Good evening. A quick look a little further in advance from next meeting. Save the date, the 4th of May, for the German Heritage Research Group annual seminar at Langmile Church. The theme this year is Broad Horizons, South Australian German stories from a wider world. We will have new stories that you've not heard before about a young Cooper working for Yalumba, who turns out to be a physics professor in New York. We have a teacher who fights in the American Civil War. We have 3 missionary wives who serve on 4 continents, including South Australia. We have a German whaling ship that has its crew mutiny outside Adelaide. And we have a survey of the soldiers in Germans who fought as soldiers in the Boer War in South Africa. That's only a small portion of the stories we will have for you on Saturday, the 4th of May this year, in our History Month event. Our event next month, on the 18th of April, it will be presented by one of our wonderful Lutheran Archives volunteers, Andrew Zilm, who comes in once a week to digitize photos for us, but also works as a volunteer at the Lobethal Museum, that wonderful treasure in Lobethal that preserves the first, a little cottage that was connected with the first Lutheran seminary in Australia, Pastor Fritsch's Lobethal College. And Andrew has been auditing the collection there. He has become fascinated by the story of Jonas Vanagas, the Lithuanian migrant, post-war to migrant, who became fascinated with the history of Lobethal and the history of the Lutheran relics in Lobethal, and worked to save those relics, which are now housed in that museum. And Andrew has worked through the correspondence, the press cuttings, and the catalogue, the first catalogue of the museum, and will tell us how Jonas Vanagas managed to create this museum of Australian Lutheranism in Lobethal. So that's May and April for us. Then turn finally to tonight, the very interesting news story of the Indonesian Christian Fellowship here. And to speak about it, I will introduce, unfortunately not Dasni, who is in Indonesia at the moment, but their good friend, Anthea Habel, who will speak on their behalf and on her own as someone who has visited these people, travelled with these people to their homes in Indonesia as well. Anthea was born in Blackwood, grew up there as a Methodist. She worked her way through right up to the top of Girl Guides. She played tennis and netball in church sport teams. She cooperated in the family farm, and she became Lutheran when she married and has been a member of the Lutheran congregation in Pasadena for 40 years. She's worked on the leadership team there, including a stint as cross-cultural deacon for the congregation. And as her occupation, she has worked in the Bar Smith Library at Adelaide University for all of her working life. One of her projects as a project manager there was to move 250,000 books to new storage for the library. Yes, no small task. She retired 3 years ago and has been spending some of that time since then at Lutheran Archives, working very efficiently with entering materials into our databases, working at the moment through Pastor Ron Gahardi's slides. So Anthea is very well equipped to tell the story of the Indonesian Fellowship and to tell of her travels. She is a great traveller, a great photographer, so you have much to enjoy. So please welcome Anthea Habel. Okay. I've got this. What do I have? Yeah.
Good evening, and thank you very much for inviting us to speak tonight. We don't have Dasni, but I've managed to find a couple of willing helpers. That wasn't me, was it? Was that him or me? Nico, who is the newish coordinator of ICFA, Indonesian Christian Fellowship, and his wife, Eldest. And later on, they will sing some hymns in Bahasa, but you'll know them in English, and we'll then sing them in English as well. And that we have been to the Indonesian grocer on Goodwood Road and got something different for supper tonight, instead of the Arnott's family biscuits that you probably thought you were getting. And when I went with a friend, she said, "Oh, that's got lots of chilli, and that's got lots of chilli." And I went, "No, not tonight. Not tonight." So these two will come up and give us a hand a little bit later on, and Nico will tell us what's happening in the world of ICFA. Okay, you can go and sit down the back. Now, I don't have a clicker, so if you see me wave, it's to the people in the back to change the slides. When I talked to Lois about doing this presentation, I didn't think there was much history to talk about, but they have a huge photographic and oral history. And as I thought about it, I thought, well, yesterday was history, so tonight we'll have some modern history. My next project with Dasni is to ask the alumni to write their memories of ICFA. Before I show you any photos, I just need to say they were never taken with the thought of turning them into a PowerPoint. So some of them aren't fantastic quality, but they do tell a story. In the title, you notice that it was their Bule friend. Bule is either Caucasian or foreigner. So I'm the odd bod out in the group, sometimes B1, and every now and then there's B2 and B3. I'm not sure how much you know of Indonesia as a country, but if you look at it on the map, the islands look like a big smile. And that's exactly what these people are most of the time. They sing and they laugh and they like joking around. There's over 17,000 islands stretching a distance of 5,000 kilometres. They have the largest lizard in the world, a Komodo dragon, the smelliest flower in the world, the corpse flower, and are the biggest exporter to the EU of frog's legs. Just thought, no, that was something different. In Adelaide, there is quite a large Catholic Indonesian community who meet once a month at the monastery at the top of Crossroad at Glen Osmond, and they, like us, go to their own congregations at other times.
Some people can't hear you.
Oh, it's up a bit high.
You just sort of adjust the...
Which way do they want to go?
You want... You want Anthony to use this, or can we modify that? Microphone?
I
We want people to hear what you're saying.
Can't see. Is that better or worse? No.
You're right.
Well, I don't have many options, I don't think, other than holding it up here. Can't see. Is that better? Not really? Yes? No? If I keep my head down? You'll just have to play with it. Okay. There are also a few more Pentecostal congregations in Adelaide, but all of these groups will get together for each other's Christmas service, for each other's special events. So they all know each other, and you'll find them at various events. When we talked about this talk, I said to Dasni, "Where's the history of ICFA?" And she said, "Oh, on about 4 scraps of paper in Bahasa." I went, "Marvellous." So I finally managed to get her last year to sit down with me, and I have written it out, and it still needs a little bit of work, but it'll give you the basic idea. In 2004, a few people met, Indonesian people met with members of the Ascot Park Uniting Church and joined to discuss how to embrace the Indonesians in Adelaide of different denominations to give them the opportunity to worship together. We decided to worship for the first time at Ascot Park Uniting Church each Sunday from the 5th of September. The Indonesian service was held once a month so they could see how many people attended. Many people attended, and it was decided to form a committee. They had the help of an Indonesian pastor who was the husband of a student. In 2006, this person completed their study and returned to Indonesia, and Dasni continued in his position. 2007 and 2008, other people came forward to help. Their coordinator all along has been a member of the Indonesian community. They've had a couple of student pastors who have been students here at LCA. 2010, that person went back to Indonesia, and the committee asked the Uniting Church if they could provide a pastor so services could continue. This request was unsuccessful. At this stage, Dasni was working as an assistant student chaplain with Pastor Mike Pietsch, and he introduced Dasni to Pastor Detlev. In 2010, Dasni, Billy, the coordinator at the time, met with the people of Pasadena, and we welcomed them, and we've had them ever since. So they've been with us now since 2011, and the numbers have gone up and the numbers have gone down. COVID really knocked the numbers around a lot, but students are starting to come back now. The issue for Indonesian students coming to Australia is you might have 100 come, but only 10 are Christian. And then where do they live and where do they want to go to church? So we don't have sole dibs on them, unfortunately. The current ICFA program is a monthly service at Pasadena on the first Sunday of each month, followed by lunch. Now, lunch is not a Vegemite sandwich. It's much better than you're going to get at home. These members attend various other churches on the other weeks. It consists of students, permanent residents, people visiting their families, people staying with their families on visas to help their families get through. They have a women's Bible study and a youth service held at various locations. I once attended the women's Bible study held in the cafe at IKEA. Over the years, and this is before COVID, we had a number of gala dinners and fashion parades and things like that. The congregation were happy to support a project that they put forward, a new roof or kindergarten tables and chairs or something like that. They didn't want to come to another dinner, but they would give once a year as a retiring offering, and that worked very well, and I think we need to look at starting that again. I think the days of us doing big dinners and gala events is probably gone, but for those events, if they could dial up a rent-a-crowd of all their friends, was quite amazing. We have also, you may have heard in the last 12 months of the death of 2 Indonesians who were here on working visas, killed in vehicle accidents, and 3 of them severely injured. The Indonesian community of both the Muslims and the Christians all got together and supported and fundraised for those families and helped to have their bodies repatriated. And we've been lucky that my son works in the funeral industry, and he has been very useful or helpful in guiding who do you talk to, how do you go about repatriating a body. It's interesting that these students are here, they make good friends for the 2 or the 4 years they're here, and in some cases they keep these friends when they go home. And if they hadn't come to Australia, they would never have met these people, and we would never know any more about them. The Indonesians have also joined the communion rosters, sometimes the reading roster, but the music roster in particular, and we have been very, very spoilt by having them. The Wayside Chapel that you might know we have on the corner, if you know where Pasadena Church is, which we do have a grant to upgrade before this one falls over. A number of people have seen that from the bus, the G10 bus going down Goodwood Road, and that's how they've turned up at church. But it's quite common, they come in as a new person and someone says, "Oh, how do you do? Where do you come from? Do you sing or do you play an instrument?" And they're automatically seconded to the music group. Okay, we'll go to the next one. So for those of you who don't know Dasni, this is Dasni Rau, and we don't often look as glamorous as that. Dasni has a very strong Christian commitment and a strong sense of justice. She is from the Batak ethnic group of North Sumatra and keen to see her traditions continue in Adelaide with the blessing of new homes. She has walked hundreds of miles in the pilgrimage in the trail in Spain with a good friend, supported Indonesians who have had surgery here in Adelaide and then need to recuperate and before they can go home. There are always people at her house or for a meal or short-term accommodation. She has a very, very understanding husband. She loves entertaining. Her connections with the church in North Sumatra helped our mission trip to select the projects we supported. Last year's visiting Indonesian pastors for her was like a big reunion. And she's a multitasker. I think this picture is, anyone who knows Dasni, this is Dasni all over. Okay. I first went to Indonesia in 1978 as a national representative for the Girl Guide Association, having missed out on an application to go to Mexico. These 2 Indonesian girls looked after 3 Taiwanese and 2 Australians who were the only non-Indonesians among the 10,000. I stayed connected with these 2 girls and I visited them both in Germany. One has sadly passed away, but I stay in contact with Lily. What? Sorry, that was me waving my finger at the wrong point. In the left-hand pictures, 1978, Lily and I swapped uniforms. We looked like airline hostesses, and we were asked for help in Denpasar Airport. Lily would probably still fit in her uniform. I have no idea where mine is, which is probably all for the good. So we've kept in contact over the years with our children at the same age by aerograms, emails, WhatsApp. And this is us in the last couple of years. The people in ICFA will tell you that I'm half Indonesian, but I will disagree that I am not late, particularly to the airport, and I don't have much language, which keeps me out of some of the debates and some of the arguments, but no, I probably know more than I let them know. In 2018, I visited 4 different cities in Indonesia simply as a holiday and to put together reunions of students who had been here in Adelaide. 2019, I was invited to join the ladies on the mission trip to North Sumatra, and in a couple of months I'm going to Bali for my brother-in-law's 70th and then to Jogja to visit friends. Where did we get to? Okay, where we're up to. This would be easier. One more, please. All right. This is Nico with one of our very strong supporters at Trinity, who is a very, very able lady at making banners. She's made our beautiful Christmas ones. She's just completed a set of Easter ones that were a community thing. And for a long time, she's wanted to do something for ICFA, give them a banner as well, which now hangs proudly in the hall. But the cover was nearly blown one day when Nico and Aldous called in, and Faye had to hurriedly turn it over on the ironing board and push it out of the way and I'm not sure if they actually saw it, but they've been polite enough to say that they didn't see it. This was the day the banner was presented and to the congregation. The other big thing we did for them last year was to organise their logo onto name tags. So that's been most helpful for members of the English-speaking community. This was when ICFA first came to Pasadena, and in a nice twist, ICFA sang at the service that Pastor Valdis was installed at, and then they sang at the service where Pastor David returned his cross of position at Blair Athol. So it's been a nice little journey between us. This was Detlev's farewell, and they're amazing at getting gifts from Indonesia, and they turn up on time, and I don't know, but I'd be worrying every time. This was the installation of Pastor Matt Huckle with Pastor Alwyn, Pastor David, and Pastor Arnie, who was the ICFA pastor for a number of years, and she regularly took part in both the ICFA service and the Trinity services. This man on the left is Pastor Freddie. His wife was a master's student at Adelaide Uni. He worked in the kitchen cabinetry factory, but these three had, I think, some very serious theological conversations that we left them to carry on. So Pastor Freddie did do some work for the ICFA when Arnie had to go away. This is just one of those lovely shots. Those kids are all a bit bigger now, but I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and that's the sort of kids they are. They just are lovely. A visiting pastor will be made an honorary member of ICFA very quickly and put in a photo. So if you don't like being in photos, don't hang around with them. This was this Christmas after the Trinity Christmas Eve service. This one is not very clear, but I think you can see this is the stairs upstairs at Trinity. And this is probably 3 minutes before church is meant to start, and we're just having a last-minute practice while everybody thinks, this is never going to happen, but, well, it does. This was the installation of Pastor Valdis Anderson's last year. Celebrations are a big thing in Indonesian culture, along with food. This is called, and I hope I get it right, tumpeng. Yeah. So it's turmeric rice, and it's a celebration thing for graduations, for birthdays, for things. And you cut the top part to give to the person who is celebrating. Then everybody else can have some. And the food around it also has meaning, but I'm not quite up with the meaning of what the food around it is. So 1 year, 4 Indonesian students graduated in the 1 week's ceremonies at Adelaide Uni with PhDs. So we had 4 of these on the table, and it was quite a celebration. And I suspect we'll have another one in a few weeks' time for a girl graduating with an MBA. This is Dasni and Tante Auntie Siang, who are founding members of ICFA. This was Siang's 70th birthday, which was hosted at Pasadena and hosted by Dasni, and it was a very, very good occasion. We've also had some children of Indonesian families baptised in our church. This baby I'm holding is wearing my baptismal gown, which was handmade for me. And we did have to remember to tell Detlev that it had a satin petticoat and that he might just slide out if Detlev didn't hold on to him very tightly. This poor little chap has 4 godmothers, which is probably a bit too many, but never mind. But only one of them lives in Indonesia and doesn't live on the same island, so there we go. We've had one wedding, which Pastor Matt was really looking forward to doing, but he went off to a conference in America, so we had to hurriedly get around and pull this together, because Aldo decided to have his wedding in July in Adelaide and bring both his families. They were frozen. They did take their jackets and things off for the photos, but they all put puffer jackets on very quickly. And when we were in Indonesia, we met the bride, Helsa, who was tearing her hair out because Aldo was trying to finish assignments. He wouldn't answer emails, he wouldn't answer phone calls. So we sat down at that meeting and basically planned it and then pulled it all together on behalf of Aldo. Apart from the one with the tongue sticking out, it's not a bad photo, but never mind. But this was probably one of the social events where the children dressed in their national costume from the area that they come from, and they have some beautiful fabrics in some of these things. I have to say I never expected to get into somebody's official graduation photo after a Flinders Uni graduation, but here I am. So the baby was born here. He was the one in the christening gown. The other two, most people didn't realise he had brothers and sisters until the grandparents arrived at church with them one Sunday, just before the graduation. And it's quite common for maybe just the student to come and leave the partner and the children at home and not go home for the 2 years. Or maybe the family comes for Christmas. There's a whole lot of things, but communication now is so much better as far as WhatsApp and video calls and things like that. It must have been exceedingly hard before the technology really improved. But unfortunately, her father became quite sick while he was here in Adelaide, and so that gave us a few other things to do. When students come, they often come for a semester by themselves, settle in, find accommodation and that sort of thing. Then they bring their family. You cannot enrol a child in school unless you have a residential address. And most of these students and their partners have part-time jobs as well as doing your master's or doing your MBA or doing your PhD. So some will ask for support from their parents to come and sort of keep things running in the family. Our gala of fundraisers often become very big cultural experiences, not just for the Indonesians, but for us as well. This is Elia, who did a Master's in Theology at Flinders and now has just completed a PhD in Theology at Manchester Uni. We think that's quite amazing, but he's also a very, very big Manchester supporter, soccer supporter, so we're not sure who he talked to before he got that. But this thing is called a violin sesando, and it's the instrument of Kupang, which is the eastern end of Indonesia, and it was fascinating to watch him play it and listen to it. I don't know how we transported it here, but we did. Next one. Fashion parades were another way of doing a fundraiser, but it also brought out some amazing national costumes from all across the islands. And these two were not particularly keen on each other, but so they paired them to be in the fashion parade. And they looked very civil, but I'm not sure if they really enjoyed it, but never mind. This girl rang me when I was away in Indonesia and said, "When are you coming home?" I said, "Oh, in a week." "Can't you wait for a week?" "No, I can't wait for a week." And I thought, "Oh dear." Got back to Adelaide and she confided in me that she was pregnant with their third child. How was she going to manage? And I thought, well, we'll manage. we'll do something. But we gave her a bridal shower, and in the Indonesian community, not many of them knew what a bridal shower was. So, not a bridal shower, sorry, a baby shower. So we had a lot of fun, like, you know, the competition to guess her girth and guess the baby weight and all these sort of things. And I didn't understand much of the conversation, but just by the laughter and the faces, I'm not sure if they would have scared her away, but they were pretty awful, I think. On a more serious note, COVID really was hard on an expat community and students who were here. Students could go home, but then new students couldn't come. So the numbers became quite small. We were always saying goodbye to someone. So we had Zoom each week, but they really felt that they were sort of at a loose end. They didn't know how to support the people at home. And this was whoops, it's gone. Stop waving my hands, I think. This was an initiative of the Christian churches of Indonesia, and it was called Pray for Indonesia. It was at night in a fairly candlelit church, and it was a very powerful experience, and there was a lot of tears shed, but I think it was a very good thing to do, in that they got to get together and talk about it, and I think they felt a bit more in control of things after that. This is a story affected by COVID. Her name is Betty, and she comes from East Timor, but because there weren't many East Timorese around at the uni, she quickly became a friend of the Indonesians with a common language. She went home at the end of the first 6 months, came back and told me she was pregnant. Well, when the baby was due, she couldn't go home or she couldn't return. Nobody could come and support her either. So the other Timor ladies and I wondered what we were going to do. This is baby number 4. She's now expecting baby number 5. So in the end, she asked if I would be her support person, which I hummed and hawed for about 3 seconds. And I was there when this little one was born, and they basically lived with me for the last 6 months of her master's degree. I had her in the daylight hours and Mum had her in the dark. So that was that. And I went last year to visit to see how they're going. It's quite, some of you might recognise Warren and Yvonne Wood. And this family became like their children and their grandchildren. And Warren spoilt those 2 girls, but that's okay. And they still keep in contact with each other now, which is lovely. So when we had a grandparents thing, he had no grandchildren there, so he took Ella and Weena to the event as well. And I'm often asked when students contact me, how's Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, and how's that man who sat in the back corner? Can't remember his name, no, but how is he? So, no, it's left an impression on both lots. And they'll often say, oh, they lent me a fridge, or they read my assignments, or they drove me to an appointment. And a lot of those things I've only found out in years to come. This is a photo that I really like. This was the installation of Detlev, and this was the welcoming committee at the front door. And they got together with Helen about what sort of colours they should wear, but I don't think Daniel had any idea, he just got dressed. This is another one of Faye's projects where we made our Christmas banners, and then we painted them, and then she did the final stitching and the putting together. Elsa and Kay had sort of said hello to each other for coffee or that sort of thing, but they sat and painted there for 4 or 5 hours one day, and they've become good friends, and I'm the one who seems to have to keep them in contact, but I can manage that. Neotama comes from Nias on the island off Sumatra, and he and Colin got along very well, and he thought Colin should become the Premier, Prime Minister, Mayor of Trinity Place. So he decked him up. This guy never, ever stopped smiling. But Murray was a man of not very many words, but they were sitting there for coffee every Sunday for nearly 2 years. And Eki was very upset when I told him that Murray had passed away. And I knew that they had a good relationship, but I didn't really realise how much it would affect Eki. This family, the mother and the 3 children originally came to Australia, and then a niece came to help, and then the husband took leave from a university, and they were all here. But Maria and Graham became sort of the grandparents and the parents, and even though the children have moved off to do other things in education, they still are in contact with each other. Now, I told you food was important, and that's not catering for half a dozen people, that's catering for ridiculous numbers of people, but sometimes the noise in the kitchen is quite amazing. They discuss everything in the kitchen, they laugh about everything, but I made the mistake of teaching them how to flick tea towels. So, more for me. This was one day down at the farm, and we're having a farm day soon, more food. I think we're the only church who could do an inventory of equipment and put down 3 rice cookers. But the rice cooker is the first thing that gets packed every single time. I take my little bit out of it and they eat the rest. Barbecuing was a new thing to many of them, so me being a stirrer, gave them an L plate and a P plate, and they could decide when they thought they'd mastered the skill, and I would take it down. Most of them do. This is a newer thing that's been happening at church through, now I can't remember the name of the group, but there's a group who will cook, of Indonesians, who will cook for pre-ordered Indonesian food. And everybody brings it to Trinity on Saturday morning, and it's all packaged up with the names of who's ordered what on it. It's all paid for already. It's then sorted, bagged, and taken down to Bakalan, which is the Indonesian grocer on Goodwood Road, and it can be collected from there. They were sorting it out in the car park there, but that was cold, wet, hot, and everybody couldn't park. So they asked if they could just use under our veranda. They don't even go inside. And they've made friends with the people at Dependent Living who wave to them. And one day my aim is to bring them down to actually meet the people who they wave to every week. The gathering in the kitchen. Everybody seems to end up in the kitchen. This is where my style of washing up seems to be quite different than their style of washing up. Looks the same to me, but never mind. But for some reason they can get the floor exceptionally wet. So they all stand on, I don't know what they do, but they all end up standing on towels which somebody takes home and washes and returns, I suppose. But yeah. Not everything is easygoing or good life or whatever else. This great smiling guy here called Ganda arrived in Australia with his wife Siska and these 2 girls to do a PhD at Flinders. When they returned to Indonesia, they had a 3rd daughter. But probably 18 months after they returned home, Ganda became very sick very quickly and passed away. And I was in bed at about 11 o'clock one night, and I could hear my phone bouncing on the bedside table, and better see what's happening. And it was students Indonesians from all around the world saying, have you heard, Ganda's passed away. And I was amazed at how they just all pulled together and found each other and supported each other from very, very distant places. And some of the friends they made in Adelaide attended his funeral. And that Sunday I put a photo up at church at the end and announced that Ganda had passed away, because that big smiling face, everybody knew Ganda. And it was very sad. And my last involvement with him was he insisted on taking me to Jakarta Airport, not just dropping me off, but having dinner with me and then seeing me through into immigration. And that was the last time I saw him. This is another one of those sometimes sad, sometimes and also happy stories. The lady on the right in the pale hijab is Tiara, and she was here with her husband and the little boy Arza, who I had quite a lot of time with. I taught him to ride his bike, and we made a birthday cake with lolly snakes on the top, and it turned out that Mum hated snakes, so I didn't know, but she ran out the room. But one night at about 11 o'clock, my phone rang and her name was on it, so I answered it, but I didn't recognise the voice at all. She was so scared. She just heard her mother had had a stroke, and I think she thought that was it. And she admitted to me later that she'd got the case down from the top of the cupboard, and she'd got out the white hijab and the white clothes that they wear when somebody dies, a sign of humility. But luckily she didn't have to put them on, and her mother and father did come to Australia a couple of times, and I will stay with her parents in Jogja when I'm there in a couple of months' time. But she really was very scared, and I got in the car and went down there. I've had reunions in all sorts of places. Sometimes there's not many students there. This is not the sky. This is the roof of the shopping centre. So it might have only been half a dozen of us, but it was still fantastic to catch up with them, hear what their children are doing, meet the partners who didn't come, and things like that. This was a reunion in Kupang, which is East Timor. The lady on the right in the blue shirt is currently here at Adelaide doing a master's. The guy in the green holding the little child is her husband, who already has a master's, but he should be here soon with 4 kids to do a PhD. And that will not be the first family I know of where they're both doing study at the same time. But they will tell you, their parents and others left behind, that it's vital that they get a church family and a stable church family as soon as they can. They're really happy when they realise that, right, that bit's sorted out. Now you can go and learn to catch the bus and go shopping and whatever, but find yourself a church home. This girl's just gorgeous. She also lives in Kupang. Her husband and a small child came during the time they were here. I often have to have a look at Al's homework. Not so much now, but for a while I was getting homework every week. And one of them, the teacher wanted the weather from Kupang for a week. And Al was really cross about this because he said, the poor teacher will have to look at 25 lots of the weather in Kupang. No, not having it. So he did my weather, which meant he had to ring me every day. And then he had to put 2 extra slides into his presentation. Who was I and where did I live? But that was all good fun, and it's all good for his English as well. I still sometimes proofread papers for students and letters for students. I don't proofread bibliographies anymore. There's enough systems that can do that. In 2019, after much fundraising and planning, the mission trip team were about to head off, and they asked if I would like to go with them. And I went, oh, what are you going to do with me? No, I've got no English, I've got no Bahasa, well, not useful. They said, no, you have to come. All right. So off we went, and we went to North Sumatra, and Dasni's connections there got us visits to places, and his name's just escaped me, sitting here. I joined last year in the English program to this place via Zoom each day. So we had a look around. I went in and had a look at the library, gave them a few suggestions, and they had one project that we went off to do. Our first project was near Mount Cinnabon, which is a volcano that had erupted about 2 years before. And as we drove through, there were holes in corrugated iron roofs where molten lava had just fallen through like butter. And the government had rebuilt a primary school, but not a secondary school. And the parents were very, very keen for their children to be able to complete secondary school. That was seen as a top priority. So for this group, we paid everybody's school fees for a year. We went down to the school on the first day and put the money on the table and said, they're all paid for. Then they got a bag of flour, a bag of rice, a bag of sugar, and a big thing of oil. But we also ran some workshops there in cooking, English, knitting, and yeah, we had a lot of fun with this group. Well, that was knitting. The boys are not quite sure what to make of knitting, but some of them were actually mastered it. I don't know how much they did after we left, but they got the idea. This was cooking. I didn't get out of the English room, unfortunately, so I'm not quite sure what they cooked. I didn't get to taste any, I can remember that. Then we had another meeting with a different group in North Sumatra. At these meetings, I don't ask for anybody to translate for me. The very tall girl will often translate for me, but it's too hard in a meeting to translate and keep up with the meeting. So she just gives me a synopsis at the end, and that's fine. That's fine with me. So they gave us a project at an orphanage, and we did a couple of... The main thing we did with these children was take them all into town, and I don't think most of them had seen a building more than 1 story tall because they were walking around the streets looking at 2-story buildings. And we bought them all a new pair of school shoes. But it seemed more important about what the soul was, what pattern it was going to make down the sandy drive. Seemed to be the biggest piece. We all managed to buy a pair of shoes each, except Weena, who's too tall and has feet that were much bigger than they catered for. We also went into KFC in the morning and said we'd be back in the afternoon for tea. Now you've got time to get enough for however many people, however many kids that we had. This was an English game. I do like the little one trying desperately to get off the ground, but she never got off the ground. So there were brothers and sisters in this group. It was a big mixture, and a big mixture of abilities as well. They also had a go at knitting, and it was interesting. The children you thought would not be vaguely interested in it were actually the ones who stuck it out longer than the others. So you could never tell who was going to. But we didn't have a pair of matching knitting needles in any of that. At the end, we were also given an ulas. So I must say, we all look rather sad there. We're not sad. We just heard the children sing, and one boy who sang a solo, and we recorded it, and I'm glad we did. But none of us, we all agree that we can't listen to it and not cry. And while they were singing it, we could watch a box of tissues moving around our group. It was very, very moving. In Jakarta, I stayed with the family who were with Warren and Yvonne, and the reunion was their house, and it's quite hard to find somewhere to have a bigger number of people. So they said, in my house. And they said, how many? I said, maybe 15. That's more than 15. So I had to apologise at the end of the night about how many people there were, and they couldn't care less. But some of them had not seen each other since they went home, but they would get themselves together and come and see me, so that means they all get to see each other. Lois mentioned that I have involvement with a family farm at Maiponga, and this is a great way to get them out and about and just out of their study mode. So I take them down to the cattle yards and put the children through and decide whether you're big enough to go to market, or maybe next time you could go to market, and you slide the gates and they run them through. And all the time, the videos are going, and they're going straight back to Indonesia. And so I'm learning to stand behind them, or I turn up in their videos all the time. I've also been lucky enough through the University of Adelaide to have access to the university water ski house at Morgan. But because they use it most of the year, we had to go in winter, but that's okay. And we had Pastor Freddie with us, so we had church on Sunday around the campfire, very nice. But it all went to pieces when a kangaroo jumped through the middle of church, and nobody had a camera ready. But the girl on the right is my youngest daughter, who's just decided she may as well become Indonesian or miss out. I'm not sure if you can really see it, but there's lots of fingers up, and they've all got purple on them. And recently they have been again to vote, but this was voting in 2014, I think. And they go to the Institute building on the corner of North Terrace to vote. And the purple finger, unlike us, who just walks in and you could be anybody, no ID, no nothing, you have to prove your ID and they will then give you a purple finger. And they walked into church the next day all waving their fingers, and everyone's going, what on earth are they all doing? So I said, well, you go and ask them. They'll explain to you the value of finally being able to vote, even if you're not in your own country. This was another group we took to Morgan. The girl, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the white jumper, is from Laos. And I've just recently been there, and I've spent time with her as well. The sad part about this is, in the last lot of floods, the water went up to the roof. If you're wanting a bit of an idea of how it is. Nothing's been done yet. Insurance said they wouldn't look at it for 12 months to see if it dried out and how it dried out. Then maybe we can do something with it. So, no, it's a great place, but I couldn't believe how far the water went up. But again, we went in winter. But no, we're mad, but never mind. When I take them down to the farm, they cannot believe, one, the smell of eucalyptus is very different, and just the space. And I said to them last time, you can have 5 hectares each. And they looked a bit stunned. And they said, oh, we could build a whole village on that, all of us. And I said, well, you can live up there and you can live over there, and you won't have to talk to each other anyhow. So, no, and the children just get up there on the top of a hill and yell because they can. And I get a lot of fun watching them. This was at the River Murray, and we'd had enough of these 2 little guys. So my daughter took them for a walk, a very long walk. And they came back much nicer little fellows, so thank you very much. This is my friend Yen Yen. Yen Yen is the coordinator of the food program that I showed you earlier, but she and her husband are a big part of the Angklung Indonesian music group. Angklung is a big bamboo instrument that some of you may have seen and heard, and we're lucky enough to get to see and hear quite often. This was the group we took down to the farm before COVID. So, Nico, can we do better than that in a couple of weeks' time? Sure, okay, good. This was a trip with Indonesian family. So the little girl on the left is the daughter of the lady in the hat. And we went cherry picking. Well, we had to go to the rocking horse first, and their mothers wouldn't go up the rocking horse. So I went up the rocking horse. Don't think I'll do it again. But poor Anita found out that probably that wasn't a great colour to wear when you go cherry picking. But, well, the cherries were nice, and the place is owned by a girl I went to school with, so she's quite used to seeing me bring people through. This was another day at the farm, and we invite not just our Christian friends, but our Muslim friends to join us at that day as well. Sometimes they stay while we have our worship, sometimes they go for a walk, but we're not fussed either way, and we all get together for lunch and go off around the farm afterwards. Spring rolls is very, very popular at Pasadena, particularly with those in the dependent living, because you can put them in your microwave and have a different sort of snack every now and then. So they've always supported church fetes, which is probably another thing that I doubt we'll do again, just by the age of the congregation and the time it takes and everything. They are a lot of hard work, but they've more than done their bit towards fundraising over the years. For 2 Christmases in a row, just before COVID, we sang as a combined choir at the Pasadena Shopping Centre. And that was a lot of fun, but it also got a lot of people to stop and listen and ask who we were and why there were so many Indonesians in the group and things like that. So most Indonesian events end up dancing. And they will get anybody up to dance. It's very hard to say no. They're very persuasive. So that was one dancing one. And we dance a bit like this. They dance with much more enthusiasm than we ever do. And they get everybody else up to do it as well. I would just like to make a couple of comments that don't go with slides. Every now and then we have a lost in translation issue where I think we're going somewhere and they think we're doing something else. But in the end it usually works out. We have a big laugh about it and off we go. In my working with this group, I found myself as the nominee for a number of students to Centrelink. And Centrelink is quite something, even in my own language, let alone in a language you don't really get. And if you've got time to hang on the phone from Indonesia with a 3-hour, 4-hour time difference and your half an hour lunch break, that's not going to work either. And you need to be prepared to do battle and really keep your records. And I have eventually sent a couple of ones that just went nowhere to the Federal Member of Parliament, and that moved much faster. In the village, there have been Indonesians living in the village. Current residents in the village are Nico and Aldist. These are units that people have moved out of, either they have passed away or they need different sort of care. And these units can't be, I'm not sure what the word is, tenanted, thank you, to, where's that Ruth? Tenanted to new people, so they are rented to some of the Indonesian people. And that's a win-win for both parties. And at one stage we had baby Juro and a 95-year-old man in the village. So that was a picture that we took, and unfortunately I couldn't find it for this. The Indonesian community as a whole have every second year, not this year, an event called IndoFest. And it's held at Pinky Flat, there on the corner of War Memorial Drive. And if you want a good day out for nothing, it's a fantastic day. There's entertainment on the stage all day, there's amazing food, and it's just a really good, fun day. And as a care share activity last year, one group made that their outing. And I just had to pick the acts that had our people in it so that they could pick them and know them. But somebody picked Roger Collins' very white hair in the crowd, and so he thought that was slightly amusing to have been picked by his hair. With school, I seem to have my name on a number of emergency contacts, because you can't just have the parents in case the parents are both not there, but I've never been called. The other thing I often get is, my kid's going to school camp, and we've got a list of things that they need. What's a toiletries bag? And you go, a hairbrush, a toothbrush, soap, and maybe a face wash. And they go, oh, I can do that. That's easy. But at church, a lot of these students have been involved in Bible studies, in rosters, in music, in bands. But the congregation's not particularly good at names, but they're very good if you can show them a photo and they go, oh yes, I can go and find that person. That's very easy. The other thing we did, because we had so many visiting parents, if people know Pasadena, we have those 3 beautiful windows, stained glass windows. We did the brochure in English and in Bahasa for the windows, and that's been a very useful tool to have as well. So this group has been a blessing to me and will continue to be, and I'm sure we have many more adventures to come. Thank you very much. Terima kasih.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, Anthea. Now, is there any questions? If you do have, I'll come up with the microphone.
Or you can talk to me afterwards.
Otherwise, you can talk to Anthea afterwards. But certainly it was an eye-opener, and I think the Indonesian group would so much welcome your leadership with them. I'll call on Dr. Dean Swick, wherever he is. Sorry? Oh, we're going to have some singing.
We're going to have some singing.
Yes, okay.
And I apologise in advance that Nico and Aldous and I did this via WhatsApp. So whether I put the verses in the right order, we will wait and see.
Okay. So the pianist is going up to his
Yeah, you. Sorry, Nico.
chair,
You're the piano man.
and our singers are coming down here.
Piano's behind you. Piano's the back. Can I just borrow this for a couple of seconds?
How should I say hello in Bahasa?
Hello. Hello. H-A-L-O. Hello. It's very easy. I'll just give this to... Can you sing with him? So we've got... just go up a couple.
I need to say something before or...
Or we can... Sorry, we've got it out of order. That's all right. Or do you want to do that so you can just keep going through? No, do you want Nico to... Nico
It's
to...
okay, we can...
Go out the front so they can see it.
I need to go.
Oh,
Say something.
yeah, if you say yours and then the slides can come through. Sorry.
Oh, it's come out.
No, they've got it.
How many songs should we sing tonight?
2.
10 or no?
Oh, you would sing 10.
But before that, can I say something about the Indonesian group? Because you
Yes.
already explained everything, and I just want to say thank you for the kindness of the Lutheran Church for us. And I want to clarify a few things. And yes, right, we are Indonesian people. We love to sing, we love to smile, joke around, and of course we really love our missionary. You know the history about missionary in Indonesia. Me and Dasni, we have an ancestor from North Sumatra, and North Sumatra people really, really love missionary from Europe. They eat them. Yes, in the past. It happens 100 years ago. they really like. But finally, Nomensen, the one from, I think Nomensen is from Germany, came to North Sumatra and translate the first Batak Bible, from English, I think from Germany to our native language. Yeah. And then he became the first bishop, the first Lutheran bishop in Indonesia. Until today, Lutheran Church is one of the biggest church in North Sumatra and also in Indonesia. And it's also true that we often come late. Yeah, it's also true. So it's very common for Indonesian people to miss their morning flights because of oversleep. And as a Christian in Indonesia, we are very thankful that Jesus wasn't born in Indonesia and he was in Indonesia. You can imagine if Jesus got crucified in Indonesia and then oversleep to wake up on Easter Sunday. So yeah, it's not happening. Thank you very much, and we are very grateful for that. And it's also true that a lot of Indonesian people come to Australia. Most of the newcomers are students like me. I'm still on my student visa. I'm a student here. And a lot of them is also working holiday visa holders. And it's quite common to find Indonesian students who come to Australia and leaving their children in Indonesia. But we didn't do that. We leave our parents in Indonesia. We don't have children yet. And only 10% of Indonesian people here are Christian. Only 10%. Only 10%. And then they, when they came here, they got a job in Australia. They got a job in Adelaide. They realized that when they work, if they come to work on Sunday, they got paid more. And that's one of the reasons a lot of people, Christian Indonesian, didn't come to the church on Sunday. So yeah, that's the situation. And there's the thing that we are planning to do in the next few months in Adelaide. The first thing is the music teams will come back to Trinity Lutheran Church and helping the church to serve the Sunday service at least once a month. And we will organize visits and fellowship together while celebrating Easter in the park. And we have a monthly meeting, twice actually. The first Sunday, the first week of the month, every Sunday in Trinity Lutheran Church. And the other one is in the middle of the month. We usually have like a youth fellowship, young people, students, and we gather together in one of the students' place or in Dasni house. And on September, we are planning to have a garage sale. And December, we will have a Christmas gathering, invite many Indonesians in Adelaide. And I just realized that we had a Christmas carol together a few years ago, maybe, and we hope we can do it again this year on December. So we are very thankful for the opportunity that the Lutheran Church gave to us, and we are truly blessed and hope we can also be a blessing for the Lutheran community here. And this is the lyrics, Because He Lives. We prepared 2 songs actually. The other one is, do we have the other one? No, just this one? We got 2. Can we sing just one song? Only one? Or 2, okay. We can start this one. Because He Lives. Sing it in English, okay. There's a... Anak Allah, Yesus namanya, menyembuhkan, menyucikan, bahkan mati, tebus dosaku, kubur kosong membuktikan Dia hidup, sebab Dia hidup, ada hari esok, sebab dia hidup. Ku tak gentar, karena ku tahu dia pegang hari esok. Hidup jadi berarti sebab dia hidup. Yesus Kristus, Juru Selamatku, Kau Rajaku, Kau Tuhanku. Kau telah bangkit, hidup selamanya, dan memerintah atas bumi sebagai Raja. Sebab dia hidup, ada hari esok. Sebab dia hidup, ku tak gentar, karena ku tahu dia pegang hari esok. Hidup jadi berarti sebab dia hidup. Let's sing together in English. Because he live. God sent his son. They call him Jesus. He came to love, heal and forgive. He bled and died to buy my pardon. An empty grave is there to prove my Savior lives. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, our fear is gone. Because I know he holds the future, and life is worth the living just because he lives. How sweet to hold our newborn baby and feel the pride and joy he gave. But greater still, the clamor assurance this child can face uncertain days because he lives. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know he holds the future, and life is worth the living just because he lives. And then one day I'll cross the river, I'll fight life finals war with pain. And then as death gives way to victory, I'll see the lights of glory and I'll know he reigns. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow because He lives. All fear is gone because I know He holds the future, and life is worth the living just because He lives. Here's the other song. Ku berbahagia, yakin teguh, Yesus abadi, kepunyaanku. Aku warisnya, ku ditebus, ciptaan baru, Roh Kudus. Aku bernyanyi bahagia, memuji Yesus selamanya. Aku bernyanyi bahagia, memuji Yesus selamanya. Pasrah sempurna, nikmat penuh, suka surgawi melimpahiku. Lagu malaikat amat merdu, kasih dan rahmat besertaku. Aku bernyanyi bahagia, memuji Yesus selamanya. Aku bernyanyi bahagia, memuji Yesus selamanya. Aku serahkan diri penuh dalam Tuhanku, hatiku teguh, sambil menyongsong kembalinya. Ku diliputi anugerah. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine, heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of His Spirit, washed in His blood. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Perfect communion, perfect delight, visions of rapture now burst on my side, angels descending, bring from above, echoes of mercy, whispers of love. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Perfect submission, all is at rest. I in my Savior, I'm happy and blessed, watching and waiting, looking above, filled with His goodness, thus is His love. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long.
Finish this evening with the Lord's Prayer.
The Lord's Prayer in Bahasa Indonesia. Bapa kami yang di surga, dikuduskanlah namamu, datanglah kerajaan-Mu. Jadilah kehendak-Mu di bumi seperti di surga. Berikanlah kami pada hari ini makanan kami yang secukupnya, dan ampunilah kami akan kesalahan kami, seperti kami juga mengampuni orang yang bersalah kepada kami. Dan janganlah membawa kami ke dalam pencobaan, tapi lepaskanlah kami daripada yang jahat. Karena Engkaulah yang punya kerajaan dan kuasa dan kemuliaan sampai selama-lamanya. Amin.
Selamat malam. Good evening, good night. Yeah. The way was, I was thinking during the singing that this is just two people singing. When you go to Indonesia and you go to church there, it's not just two people, it's about 500 or 1,000, a lot of people in church. And you can even go into a congregation like maybe the size of Handorf, and there will be 4 choirs. So church takes a little while to happen, because if you've got 4 choirs and they all sing a couple songs each like this, church goes on for a while. It was my privilege to go to Indonesia in 2004, and that was a very rich experience, as we have had tonight, a rich experience. It's a very wonderful country with very beautiful, vibrant, vigorous lively people, isn't it? Absolutely. And when you hang around with Indonesian people and then you look at yourself, you think, oh, I think I'm pretty boring, actually. Because it's so lively and so vigorous and so friendly, and they overwhelm you with hospitality and beautiful food and kindness, and it's so much kindness it just about wears you out. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful way of being tired. So thank you for wearing us out with kindness. The way of saying thank you in Indonesia is, in Bahasa Indonesia, is terima kasih. And that literally means, tell me if I'm right, receive love. So when you thank someone, you're saying to them, receive our love. So that's what we say to you, terima kasih. Receive our love. And thanks for what you have shared with us this evening. Anthea, that was wonderful. And we can see in you what it means to be enriched. And the community up there at Pasadena, how they have been enriched and blessed through the presence of the Indonesian community. So, terima kasih and selamat malam. And when you go home, selamat tidur. Have a good sleep. One of the things when you're over there is that they load you up with presents, especially that beautiful scarf, ulos. Yes. So we don't have a nulos for you, but I think we might have a little something for you. This is a little terima kasih from the Barossa Valley. So can you show your appreciation, please?
Good. Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Dean, for your vote of thanks. So that brings us to the close of tonight's meeting, and we invite you all to stay for supper over in the church hall, and it's an Indonesian supper, I gather. I hope it's got not too much turmeric in it.
Turmeric or chili.
Or chili. Yeah, so look, thank you to the Eckermans and to Lorraine for looking after the kitchen again. Now, one other thing before you do leave, if you haven't received one yet, the latest FoLA journal is now available, and John Schultz has got them out here. We did have them. And so make sure you pick one up, and maybe if there's some family member that's also a member here or a member of your congregation that could take one home, would save us posting a lot out. So see John afterwards, and thank you to the editor, Dr. Dean. He took this job on about 10 years ago, very temporarily, for many years, and now he's retiring very temporarily because he wanted to give it away this last year and we couldn't find anybody to take on the position as editor, and so if somebody else could, and we've asked a number of people about it, he would welcome that, but he's prepared to do it again this coming year. Okay. So if you didn't hear that, John used to do the formatting and he wants to relieve himself of some duties, and so this year Shirley took on the job of formatting this book. So thank you, Shirley. Having said that though, John still does an enormous amount of work for us at FoLA, and we thank you so much for all that, and we just hope that you live on forever to sort of keep doing that. Okay, so look, look forward to seeing you here again next month when we're hearing about Lowerthorpe, and you're welcome to stay for supper and enjoy some Indonesian treats. Thank you. Yes, Naomi?
Things in Darwin, we were there, the multicultural congregation. We used to get occasional visitors from Indonesia, and how many million people in the Lutheran church in Indonesia puts us to shame. And down here we like to worship at Glen. There's not only one foreign congregation, but there's 3 plus 2 English services, not to brag, but we went to the installation of an ordination of Pastor Tim Chen, and that service took about 3 hours. And they love having food after every service of the different cultures, and we love the multicultural services and meals too. It's a blessing to everyone if you want to come.
Thanks, Naomi. Yes, there's a lot of good stories to be told, isn't there? And the one tonight was certainly one of them. So Anthony mentioned and had pictures of Pastor Detlev up there. He accepted the call to us at Greenock after he left Pasadena. So it was their loss and our gain, and now he's retired and he lives in Greenock in retirement. So I should have invited him to come along tonight. I'll have to get him to watch the YouTube presentation to see his picture up there. Okay, so thank you for coming tonight. It's good to see a good roll up here, and it was a very different story, and it may be that in times to come we could sort of hear the stories of some of these other ethnic groups that have services in our Lutheran churches in Adelaide. Thank you.